Welcome back to Shop Talk at the show. We're live from Las Vegas at the ARA Show. Shop Talk is being powered today by ARA Corp. We are so lucky and honored to be here today with Barney from Vandalia Rental. Kurt, as a third-generation business owner in the rental industry, it's incredible to see what you've done, building your family's business truly, and taking it to another level. And it's so great to have you here on the podcast today.
Well, I certainly appreciate being here. I'm humbled by your comments, but I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you there was a team behind that made that all happen too. So as much as I appreciate your goodwill, it wouldn't be appropriate for me just to accept it on my own. We've had great folks that have just really laid it on the line and made it happen. Without them, there's no way we'd be where we're at or get where we're going, for that matter too.
Well, you mentioned the word team, and I just want to quickly start there because I noticed that on your LinkedIn profile, your title is team leader. And I don't know if that has been your LinkedIn title for, a year or 12 years, but tell me what that means to you, because the way that you speak and the way that you talk about your team really stands out.
So I think that oftentimes at the top of the pyramid, we may be given too much credit. Obviously, proper stewardship of a business is an important thing, right? But I really genuinely believe that we don't do anything if it's not a team. And part of it was multi-pronged, but one of them was we get a lot of people that reach out and try to go to the top of a pyramid. And so it's a quick way to thwart that. And the other one, it's another way to just explain those soft touch points that this is a team. There's no two sides. We are in it together. We are going to do this thing together, and we can't do it if we don't band together. So I genuinely look at it that my uppercase F, family, is my blood, right? But my lowercase f, that's my team. What they do and the selflessness that they've done and continue to demonstrate on a day-to-day is something I could probably spend the next 10 hours talking about.
Absolutely. Let me ask you something on that. So I had the unique opportunity, thank you, of coming out and visiting your team and being with Vandalia. Seeing behind the curtain, thank you. But as I spent some time, Derek one day, and Derek's in charge of your HR, human resources, hiring, kind of recruiting stuff.
Yeah, team member development.
Team member development. Perfect. Thank you for that. And he told me one day a stat, and shame on me for not remembering the exact stat. It was absurd, where he said we had over 1,000 applicants or some crazy number like that last year for our company. And right now, the industry as a whole, there's a deficit for the number of people applying for jobs. You have an overabundance of people applying for jobs. What's the magic?
Well, we did until you called us out.
Tell us this.
Yeah, no. I will, because it's one of those things that I'm passionate about, right? I really think it's because we prioritize people. A lot of people say people first, a lot of people say other things, but we actively prioritize the human element of the business. And I think that is such a key component for the growth and the success that we've experienced, because you can have a leader, but if no one's willing to follow, all they have is a title, right? And probably too much of a paycheck. So we've been blessed with people that are willing to kind of get on the bus, the proverbial bus, but it's really like a Fred Flintstone bus. We all pedal like hell, and they bless us to be able to do it, and we're just running and rocking, and we're doing it and having fun. And I think if you make it fun, people want to join in. Yeah. So we were blessed for the last 3 years. We've been internally from our team been voted one of the best places to work. I think that's one of our greatest accolades. We get a lot for some of our financial accomplishments, but that's really not what we take the most pride in. If we're doing the right things for the right reasons, those will pull through. But to have the people that want to join and be part of our cause and our purpose and our communities and our teams and grow within there, to be able to foster an environment where you can get hired at any leg or level of the organization and have an opportunity. Now, I need to be candid. It's not 3 minutes into the job, right? But over time, we need those folks that are hungry, that are humble, that are smart, that that just really band together as a team and make it happen.
So with investing in your people and growing your team and really creating this culture, a lot of companies are going to say, that's expensive. Like, it is massively expensive to vest people, to train people, to do culture profiles, to do all those things is massively expensive. Why do you do it?
Well, I would answer that question with another question. I would ask them how much it costs to not.
Oh, absolutely.
So if you cannot proactively evolve, then you're probably going to eventually die. And we've seen that out of some of the biggest businesses out there. So we've had to adapt our model, we've had to adapt our team.
That's right.
And it's evolved. Just candidly, Elliot, we once went through a journey to where we didn't have the culture we wanted. And we gave everybody $10,000 in a transition plan to quit so that they weren't locked into a job.
Absolutely.
That they could commit to this cause. And they'd be part of that band of brothers and sisters that are willing to do the one mores and the extras. And when they get that call, they'll make that selfless sacrifice to go deploy that time, that precious time, on behalf of our cause to our customer base. And I think we've heard it time and time again. That's the difference that's funded our growth. So if we don't make those investments, they're not going to make them either.
Yeah. So I got to ask you something, and this, I'm going to go off script. This is completely selfish. As we all go out, a lot of rental companies are generationals.
True.
Your company, from Jack to Randy, to you taking over the company, 75-year history.
Close, not quite, but we'll get there.
Yeah, it's next year, right?
No, not quite. We're 61, so we got a few extra.
Okay, you're getting close.
Yeah, we're creeping on it. We will get there.
These generational companies, you walked in and everyone holds on to their history. And you walked in and you said, listen, I've evaluated it. I think the quote I saw was, analysis guides our strategies. And it was something that you said, and you said, look, we're going to change up the entire game. And you rejected the foundation your company was built on by your founders. And you said, I see a different model. Part of that, give everybody $10,000 and wish them well.
Sure.
And you changed the entire dynamics. That is a massive risk. You burned the boats. Like proverbially, you said, look, we're going to storm the beach, we're burning the boats, and this is either going to work or not. What did you learn? And why did you do it?
So let me answer that in reverse. So why do we do it is because we're students of the business. I don't believe that we get to guide the business in totality. We get to understand the business, and it talks to you. And it's our job to respond accordingly within the markets. And the model of the industry was shifting. So this was the early 2000s, and consolidation had got enough critical mass to where you could see that it was going to be very difficult to compete unless you had scale. So we went with a strategy of shrink or grow. And it's probably selfish, but I'm a competitor at heart. I played competitive sports my whole life. Shrinking wasn't really in the cards. I'm not real good at that. No, I don't wave the white flag. Anyone that knows me is I'm a bit of a driver and a pusher, and I grew up with a grandfather that would say, can't is a bad word. Don't use that around me. So I think what we did is we studied it, and we relied early on in data. And data was a powerful tool for us because there was still a little bit too much of this going on in the industry from the IRC side. So we didn't have any money. That's the problem. You can have all the ambitions in the world, but if you don't have any capital to be able to fund it, it's just ambition. It's not a plan. So we had to figure out how to build the plan, and that data helped us figure out how we could create cash and where our cash was coming from and what customer segment we could focus on and how we could win within a space instead of just do what others were doing. So we focused.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you may have to cut me off because I can rant for a while.
I know, you're still saying smart.
But
So
it was a survival more than it was burn the boat. But I'm a big believer, and I've been mentored throughout my life, that if you're not all in, you're not really focused. So how do I ask the team to go all in if I'm not all in? How do I say, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, but I'm not willing to commit? How do I ask those individuals? to become part of that culture and make those self-sacrificing decisions for the greater good. And without that, I didn't think you could. So I don't think we completely bet the farm, because one unique thing about us is we will not enter anything without an exit plan, so that we know we didn't completely bone the boats. But we just doubled down and we committed and we focused and we learned and we listened and we stayed curious. And that curiosity allowed us to grow into different things and different fleet mix. And then we drug the balance sheet with it, and we figured out how to grow with the balance sheet. I mean, it's called a balance sheet for a reason, right? So instead of just chasing revenue, we had to figure out how to chase growth. And I'm a big believer that there's a distinct difference between those two. So we educated. We actually became full transparent on our books. So we actually, day one, hire one, whether it's Washrack or our CFO, then we expose our financial statements to them. Because if they don't know how to look at the scoreboard, we don't know how they're going to help us win the game.
Wow.
So we educate around that stuff, and we invest in the individuals. We don't just invest in the growth.
That is awesome. So let me ask you one more part of that. You made a key phrase. You said, we let the data help us make the decisions. Right now, yesterday, there was a contractor panel, and one of the gentlemen, actually, John K. made the statement. He goes, there's almost too much data out there. We're not starving for data. What we're starving for is genuine knowledge about what data to use and then what action to take with the data. And I gave the analogy yesterday to somebody. I said, it's the equivalent of my wife saying, hey, we need stuff to make dinner. She just gave me some data. I need to know what she wants me to do. Do I need to go to the grocery store? Is she going? Do I need to call somebody? Like, I need to know what action to take. Help people understand, because I love what you've created and the growth of growing your 7 branches and all the things you've done. Just give me 1 or 2 key performance indicators or key market indicators or pieces of data where you said, that was why I made the decision.
I will answer that slightly differently. So what I believe is in the power of one. So I think that there's a plethora of data, there's a plethora of stuff, but if we're going to cascade a message and we're going to go into battle and ask people to remember even 2 things, then they have to figure out which one is the priority.
Yeah.
So what we did in 2015 is we set a goal. We did a BHAG, right? We had a strategic planning session. We said by the end of 2020, we're going to get to 20 million in rental revenue. And then we just did a screen pop every day on where we were in the process of that journey. And then we bonused the team based on the revenue growth. Nothing to do with the cost structure, because we could manage that on the back end to drag it with us. But they were focused. They knew what the objective was. We put the bumper bowling, along the side lanes. So we coached through some of the mistakes. We're a big proponent of we'd rather have to correct than to motivate.
Yeah.
So we can become that teaching hospital and explain the why. Because when people understand the why, they tend to execute around it. And then they have to have the WIFM, right? It all sounds great and well, but why are we doing it and what's in it for me? So if you're going to have a team, you all have to celebrate together. So everybody gets an apple off the tree, right? It's not rocket science what we do. I mean, in its essence, it's kind of a glorified library system, right? We check it in, we check it out. Someone gets benefit of using it. But the people behind it are the secret sauce that are absolutely irreplaceable.
Amen.
And if they get behind that mission, that cause, and there's no confusion, we've all heard it about rowing in the same direction, right? You can get some major momentum. And that's exactly what we've done is we've been blessed with the ARA Market Movers list. That wasn't a goal we set out to do. That was something the team accomplished because we focused on balanced revenue growth.
That's right.
Wow. There's a quote by Peter Drucker that says, culture eats strategy for lunch. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about the culture that you have built at Vandalia. Tell me what you think about that quote and how that applies to what you built, kind of looking all the way back to when you first took the reins of that business. And there are a lot of companies out there that are in the position now that you were in then. And I think for them to have a vision of growth like you've experienced, maybe a little bit overwhelming.
Sure.
Like,
I won't lie, there were some moments of that. COVID threw me for a loop.
But you built this culture, and I think that now culture probably includes getting your people to think more strategically about the importance of execution and how they play a role in the growth of the team and the growth of the company. So I know I left you with a lot there.
Sure.
Tell me about your thoughts on that quote.
So my thoughts are initially that I absolutely support it, but I don't think you can win with just one. I think you have to have strategy. I think you have to have culture. But if you made me prioritize, people are amazing, resilient creatures. And if you align the right incentive plan with the right outcomes, with the right level of support, knowledge, training, education, whatever it might be, funding, capital, then they can do miraculous things. So you have to trust into that. And I'm not always trust willing right out of the chute. But when I can believe in the person and when I believe in the culture and I believe that we can build the process, I really only need 30 to 60% of the facts to make the decision to go forward because I'm willing to be trust willing to learn into it. And so a lot of times we'll say we'll grow into it. We won't go into it because we're going to evolve through whatever the planning process was because we're going to learn through that journey. And we've moved to branches that way. I mean, as cavalier as it may sound, we've made decisions to open branches and locations in about 7 minutes before. We knew the facts going in, right? So if you know your data and you know your risks and you know your balance sheet and you know your opportunity and you know your exit ramp, you can dwell on it, but it's not really going to change the facts.
Where did you learn this?
I don't know. Probably soccer. I had some great...
Somebody's looking for a business book. Somebody's looking for a degree. I don't think soccer is the right answer. Give us something like I realize that you got a PhD level with all the things you learn in business from your family, from the people you've worked around. You've got a massive level of knowledge. If somebody said, look, I'm either jumping into this or I'm ready to elevate, where can they learn some of the things that you've learned the hard way?
So I think one of the things that I had as a backdrop that really helped me is twofold. Is one, I'm naturally a very curious individual.
Amen.
So that came natural. It wasn't anything that I did. I can drive some people nuts with some questions. So there's two sides to every equation, right? So it's not always a gift. It can be a curse at times too. But the other one is I came in with a financial background. So I believe that the single most thing, if someone was getting into this, is maybe not accounting, but there's 5 to 10 core simple calculations that you should know and understand in business. Time value of money, compounding interest, basic rules of marrying up debt with asset lives. I think that there's some of those things because I may be a little unique in the fact that I'm a proponent of using smart debt. I believe that debt's kind of like a fire.
That's right.
It provides basic resources. There's light, there's heat. If it's used correctly, it's a powerful tool. It can accelerate growth. But if it's left without a ring around it, that thing can burn down. And I don't mean anything negative or insensitive based on what the recent events are, but that's the reality of it. So you have to have some basic understanding, and you have to be willing to understand that you don't know it all. And if you come in afraid to fail, that's almost a guarantee that you're going to.
That's right.
So we actually make an acronym that we teach internally that we spell FAIL, F-A.I.L, fix, assess, improve, and learn, right? So it's fix whatever we got wrong fast and first, assess how we got there, improve the process, and demonstrate the learning by not repeating it or educating other teammates. And if we do that, that's just the price of tuition. Like, we don't really believe that we have expenses in the business. We just have investments.
Wow. I was down at gem and too much time over anything. That was spot on.
So let me ask you this, Kurt. So we're in an age especially over the last 5 years, where we've seen an incredible amount of consolidation in the industry, maybe the busiest M&A activity in 15 to 20 years, call it a generation almost. And you have gone a different path with your business, leading your business, growing your business. What opportunity do you see in continuing to be able to do that as consolidation continues?
I think the opportunity out there is some of the best it's ever been for the independent right now. So if I just segment it into the small independents and the large consolidators, now there's a third mix in there that I'm going to call the dealers. But outside of that, if you really break it down, there's not but a handful of small multi-site true independents in the rent-to-rent space that are left in the United States. But if you look at the total addressable market, imagine if you're a contractor and you did $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 and you started a landscape company and you grew up and it grew the business and all the sweat equity and you got to know Bob at the rental counter or Jim, the president or team lead or whoever, right? And I'm not going to name a consolidator. I don't believe that that's fair. And now imagine that your business started to grow. You brought on a second crew, a third crew, and you can't just make it a half hour, 45 minutes back. Where are you going to go? Your odds are you're forced with a decision. Are you going to use the consolidators where you can have familiarity, but you're now the minnow in the ocean? You were the koi fish in the pond. We heard some of that while we were at ARA, right? Imagine what that sentiment feels like. So there is such an opportunity because the consolidators are appropriately leveraging, and this is just my hillbilly assessment, their network and their strategic advantages, as I would if I were them. But the 80-20 rule applies to them as well. They're focused on that 20% of their account business that generates 80% of that revenue. So there is a massive gap that's forming in the market in that 20,000 to 200,000 space. Now, they may disagree on my numbers, but there is just a very credible and large void that if the independent is willing to take the risk and is willing to take the trust, that they can grow into it. But it is an extreme risk to start from scratch. I mean, I don't know how else to say that.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of opportunity in my mind, not to start a new rental company, but to scale an existing rental company right now. Because there is a phenomenal amount of opportunity in the market. And I'm not saying you couldn't do the other.
Yeah.
But I think it's a little bit tougher slugging on that one.
Absolutely. So let me ask you too, what's next for you? And what's next for your team? Because you keep mentioning your team, so
Sure.
I realize you're going to go that direction, so we might as well just start at the beginning.
Yeah. So my goal is to live to be 100. And I'll have to make a decision at some point when I get there.
Okay.
But what's next for me is I just a couple weeks ago transitioned out of my last tactical role in the business. So my journey, when I started, we had approximately 20 folks on the roster. And at the end of this year, we should have about 200 folks on the bench, right? So I kind of went from being a second string quarterback and being coached to learn the game. And I was blessed to learn that from my dad, who I still to this day believe is hands down one of the smartest people I've ever met in this industry. And no disrespect to anyone else, it's just for what he taught me and how he taught me and the lessons I learned that I did not appreciate in those moments. I'm incredibly blessed to have had that experience. So then I got a starting spot, right? And then after a little bit of time, it became clear that somebody else needed to be quarterback and I needed to move to the coaching role. And then there was people coming up, and it's not when you want to leave, it's when they're ready to elevate. So if they're ready to step in that role, you have to be willing to let them. Now, they can't just think it on their own. They got to be genuinely ready. Yeah. But if you're waiting until you need something, you didn't put the tracks in front of the train from the talent pool. And it's easy to benchmark and not do that. But when you're growing, you're investing, and you're not as concerned about profitability as you are sustainability and risk management and cash flow creation and 1,000 other things, right? Wow. So then I think it's graduated to a journey to where now we've got some great talent and some great seats on that bus we talked about, and we're pedaling forward. So I'm not quite ready, but I know they're moving me over to the owner's box. So
That's a wonderful analogy. Wow.
but I will do so with pride and the ability to help in different ways, because I've always been able to be passionate about the people on our team and our customers and supportive of our vendor network and the associations, the local association, the GCTRA that we belong to that's local to Cincinnati, the people that have put their fingerprints on our team's journey is wide and deep. And I'm incredibly blessed that they allow me the opportunity to steward this forward. And I plan to do so for quite a while, as long as they'll let me do it.
That's awesome.
Well, Kurt, the industry is lucky to have you, and what you've built really is inspiring. And I hope that this conversation today and future conversations that we have and your insights into what it takes to be successful as an independent rental company in this industry, as much as it's growing, as much as it has changed, a lot of it maybe stays the same in terms of what it takes to be successful if you're focusing in the right areas, the way that you have over the last decade or so. So thank you very much for being a guest with us today on Shop Talk here at the show, live from Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Ready to hit the show floor starting Thursday. And really appreciate you being on here with Shop Talk powered by ANA.
So I'm incredibly blessed and appreciative of the opportunity to be able to speak and share our story. So thank you so much.